This video needs another piece. If the current chief scientist at DRDC-Ottawa sees this video and would like to discuss any of this with me, including things that aren't in the video, then Kate, please send me a message, or better yet, give me a call. I would be delighted to discuss any of this with you. This is a video about something very important to me, professional ethics, and the theme is plagiarism. Several years ago, two government scientists plagiarized a report that I wrote about the intercept corridor, about which I've made several videos now, published it as their own internationally under the banner of the Government Research Agency. Now, this is a teaching video. It's meant to share my experience because someday somebody watching this may be called on to put your hand in the fire in the interest of protecting professional ethics. And on that day, you will have to make your own decision. I decided to proceed. I decided to go for the fire. And I can tell you a few do's and don'ts. And I can summarize it pretty simply, really, right at the front. When it comes to writing and speaking, it's best first to make a phone call to whomever you're communicating with and then follow that up with an email or a letter. And registered mail is your friend. You have to document everything all the way along meticulously. Also, everything that you say and do and write is not really said or done or written for the person you're communicating with. It's really for the person you haven't met yet. It's the grown-up that's going to show up later and say, what's been going on here? And at that time, you want all of the record of everything that you've done to show that you are the most reasonable, most fair, most understanding person in the history of Western civilization. That's who you're writing to, not the other person. You're writing to somebody else. And in the process, you do become the most fair and just and reasonable person ever. So that's in the broad strokes, how to proceed on something like this. So here are the specifics, because there are lessons in the specifics also. So many years ago, I was involved in a government project run by Defense Research Establishment Ottawa. There are 6 research establishments in Ottawa, and one of them, the one that deals with electronic warfare, is in Ottawa, where I live. And so this project was about the fusion of sensors and weapons for ship defense against missile attack. And there was a prime contractor, a large defense company here in Canada was a prime contractor, and I was a subcontractor to that company. And they held the prime contract with DRDC-Ottawa. So one of the aspects of this work was a definition of soft kill. And if you're going to coordinate hard kill and soft kill is where you shoot down the missile, soft kill is where you jam it. Then we need a definition of soft kill, and I've done that already. I did that in 1996. I invented the intercept corridor and did not patent it, but I did write a report that outlines all the math and the implications of it and what it could be, some examples of what it could be used for. So when it came time for the scientific authority to address, the DRDC-Ottawa Scientific Authority to address this part of the project, I said, I've got that. So, well, could we license the report? And the answer is, of course you can. And this had been done before. I was working with DSTL Ports Down West, then called DARA, I think, and on a similar-ish subject, and a colleague there chose to license the report. Now that's for internal use only, within MOD and DND purposes, and so I charged them a bunch of money for that. They paid, and they have the report. That was about 3 years prior to what I'm talking about now. So now DRDC-Ottawa wants to license the report. I said, yeah, no problem. And the scientific authority said, can you change the name of the intercept corridor in this report to something else? I said, sure. I thought that's odd. I said, well, why do you want to change the name? Intercept corridor sounds perfect to me. Well, we just want to be distinct. Our version of the report will be distinct from yours. I thought, okay, sure. How would we call it? An intercept funnel? Maybe that was what I used. And yeah, so search and replace, and I handed the report over. And okay, that's fine. And I had a lot of problems with the scientific authority as we were going along, various things. Anyway, we won't get into that. But there was some friction. And one day I was working in a 3-man office. We were all contractors, 2 from the prime contractor and then me. And one of the guys said, it was not a very chatty fellow, he was very good technically, but not very chatty. He said, "John, do you have a minute?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So he said, "Take a look at this. Does this look familiar to you?" And so I looked at his computer screen and paged down through a document, and I said, "Well, I haven't seen this document before, but I can tell what it's about. It's about the intercept corridor." And I said, instead of kneeling here, do you mind sending me that document? It's a draft report, he said. "Draft, send that over to me and I can have a closer look at it." So he did, and I looking at my monitor and I'm thinking, wow, this is really well written, this report. Really well, wow, that's really well written. I didn't think the Scientific Authority, there were 2 authors actually, I didn't think they could do that, but I got suspicious and I thought, that sounds like me. So I copied a line of text that I thought was particularly well written and went to my document and just did a search for it, and I found it. Like, there it is. That's why it sounds so good. It's really my work. So that's how I discovered it. Copy and search.
I think it's worth taking a minute here to see what plagiarism actually looks like. On the left side is the Sky Industries report that I wrote, and on the right side is the plagiarizing DRDC report. So just notice the pieces that are identical or essentially identical.
And I found several other instances of this too. So wow, good thing I caught this now before it's published. So I sent an email to my UK colleague and I said, "Hey, Dave, take a look at this. Like, look what I found yesterday." He wrote back and said, "I received this report last week. So it's been published already." And he said to me, "Well, what do you want me to do?" I said, "I think you should do what you would normally do as an adjunct university professor if you suspected plagiarism. What would you normally do?" So he said, "I would investigate." So he did. He searched the report. He's got 2 reports. One that he paid a whole bunch of money for 3 years earlier, and now he's got a crispy new DRDC-Ottawa report. And these 2 reports have the same words in them. But there's no key part. There's no footnote in the DRDC report. There's no credit given at all. No reference at all to my work. They licensed it, but that doesn't mean you can pretend that you did it. So anyway, so he found 6 instances of plagiarism. So I went to the head. You go up with these problems one step at a time. It's a slow process, a meticulous process, but you only go up one management level at a time. And so I went to the head of the radar EW, or radar countermeasures, radar EW, I think it was, section or division or whatever, and spoke with that person and said, look at this. "Oh, well, we'll look into this," and so forth. And a few weeks go by and I haven't heard anything. I check back. "Well, we're still looking into it." There was a lot of obstruction and obfuscation and delay, unnecessary, I'm saying delay, all the way through this, which is figures in the story. So I realized I need a lawyer. There's no way I know how to solve this problem. So I asked for a reference for my colleague and found a reference, a lawyer, hired a lawyer. They charge money for that. I didn't tell anybody at DRDC. If you want to solve this at the lowest possible level, which is what you need to try to do, try to solve it at the lowest possible level, don't mention lawyers. I didn't. That I'm paying for one in the background to get proper advice to handle this correctly. I just want the report fixed. However you fix it, add a reference, add a sentence, just get it fixed. So there was an entire summer of obstruction and, well, we'll get back to you, we need a little more time, the author is on vacation, and so eventually, after many months, I was told by DRDC, the head of Radar EW, that, oh, the report's been fixed. I feel very strongly I need to add a little piece here. In preparing this video, I found a document I forgot that I had. It's a letter from the head of Radar EW explaining, and here it is, explaining that, the report is fixed now, and, as expected, this is all just a mistake. It's an honest mistake. The authors of the report were under tremendous pressure to share the results of their work with clients and partners, and so it was an honest mistake. Well, this, in my view, is an example of the worst kind of garbage head thinking that could be brought to bear on a problem like this. There is no amount of hastening or rush or pressure that explains how one person or someone can copy the work of someone else and paste it into their document and publish it and claim it as their own. It is an inexcusable, deplorable, appalling lapse of ethical, professional ethics. And if you ever see something like this in your professional life, if you ever kind of see this kind of bullshit in your professional life, call it out. And as I've discovered later, in fact, the report was not fixed. So we were more than a year away from getting a resolution at this point. Here's what should have happened. It didn't happen. When I approached the head of Radar EW that there's a problem, he should, there's plagiarism here. What he should have said is, here's a room, here's our report, show me where the plagiarism is, and then get it fixed. That's the right approach, instead of obstructing and excusing and undermining the integrity of a world-class government research lab, not to mention undermining the integrity and the credibility of the good people who do work there. It's so completely wrong. So I said, well, okay, I'm sure that everything's fine, but as a last step, I need to read this report in order to confirm that proper attribution has been applied. We were on the honor system, we were off the honor system. I didn't put it that way in our meeting, but now I need to check. And the answer was, oh, we can't show you the report, you're not on the distribution list. Well, put me on the distribution list. It's like me saying I can't lend you my car. But anyway, I can't. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, I did go through the prime contractor. Like, it went through, because the report wasn't delivered by me to them. The report went to the prime contractor and then to DRDC-Ottawa. So there are three entities involved here, really. And they said, well, we have a non-disclosure. If you sign our non-disclosure agreement, then we can show you the report. So I said, oh, well, send it over. So I look at the non-disclosure agreement, and the NDA has an indemnification clause 12 or 14 or something, that said no harm can come to DRDC by the reading of this document. Well, no one can sign that. I mean, if I find there's plagiarism in it, I've just signed away my rights to do anything. So I said, I can't sign that. So I was consulting with my mother, the smartest person I ever met, about solving human problems. And she was a union rep for 10 years, and during which time there was no mediation, no arbitration, and no strikes, teachers union. And so she knew how to solve problems. I mean, 10 years, all problems got solved satisfactorily. So I was talking with her about how to proceed on this. And she said, well, I can see what to do on this one, on the NDA. She said, you won't like it, but I'll tell it to you. So what? I said, I know what you're going to say. I don't need an NDA because it's not their work that I'm reading, it's mine. She said, yeah. But she said, a better approach is always to say yes. If somebody says, can we do this? You say yes. But you can say yes, but. So her suggestion was a good one, to go back to DRDC and say, yeah, your NDA, yeah, we can use that. It's almost perfect for this application. But we just have to add one thing. One sheet of paper that says the purpose of Sean Charlin reading this document is to confirm proper attribution of Sean Charlin's prior work, and then the same signature pattern on the one additional page, the addendum. So I went back to DRDC with that. Oh, we can't change our document. Well, again, that's like me saying I can't lend you my car. So it's more obstruction is my interpretation of that. They just don't want me to read the report. So, okay, what else could we do? Well, we could use, I said, we could use a third-party, a mutually agreed third-party reviewer. Oh, they thought that was a good idea. Well, why don't we use, they named my colleague in the UK. And I said, well, that will not work out very well for you, but nobody in the world would think that that's objective because I have a personal relationship with that person, so it has to be somebody else. Well, how about somebody in our lab? I said, no, I don't want anybody, an employee of yours, possibly having blowback, depending on how the decision comes out. Like, don't want to put that person in I know these people. I don't want to put that person in a compromising, possibly compromising position. So they decided that the prime contractor was able to offer someone on the East Coast who could review this. And I said, yeah, okay, that works. So that person reviewed and said, well, the outcome of that was, provided that I didn't get the work from somewhere else, then the attribution is not strong enough. It's a nice way to put it. So there is plagiarism here. And so there was another problem, not just with the content, but also with the title. The title of my report was A Formalization of Missile Soft Kill. The title of their report was A Formulation of Missile Soft Kill. Well, you can't open a store called Kentucky's Fried Chicken. It's too close. It's called substantial taking, I'm told. So the title is not fixed. But at this point, the prime contractor washed their hands of it. Like, they stole the title from you, not from us. That's not really, but anyway. So everything had stopped. Now, you lose the option for legal redress after 2 years from when you discover that there's a problem. The clock is now ticking. And I had now spent almost a week short of 2 years trying to get this fixed with DRDC-Ottawa, and was met with obstruction, obfuscation, delays for almost 2 years. And when I was just about to lose all options, then I filed a statement of claim. What triggered it, though, was that they had published 3 versions of this report, including one while we were trying to negotiate the last step, the confirmation step. The chief scientist, I still can hardly believe this, signed off on 3 versions of this report, all of which had plagiarism in it, and which he knew, he had reasonably to know there has to be plagiarism in this because it's not resolved. So, as I said during our mediation meeting, which was coming up, you don't solve a problem and then check with the injured party. You check with the injured party and then you implement a solution that works for the injured party, and I'm the injured party in this story. So 3 times they published the wrong thing. So I filed, when I was about to lose all options, I filed a statement of claim, instructed my lawyer to file a statement of claim. And in that situation, you name everybody from all the way up the food chain, because you don't know how the resolution is going to come out, including naming the prime contractor. Now, it was not my decision. Well, it was my decision ultimately, but it was not my thought to do that. But the advice I got was, no, until you get a resolution, you name everybody. Their legal department is bigger than my legal department, and we're trying to solve this problem together. So now, in retrospect, I would not do that. You'll get blacklisted, and there will be no recovery from it. But at the time, that was the thing. Now, they were only the prime contractor was only named in the suit for like 4 days or something, and then their legal department talked to my lawyer, and we said, okay, that's enough. You're out. But I still have a problem with DRDC-Ottawa and the 2 scientists who did this. And there's an important wrinkle on this too. When it comes to plagiarism, which is a violation of Canadian copyright law, and by the way, another piece of advice, when you are wronged, express it in the strongest possible words without being offensive. So, they stole my work, they copied my words. No, they violated Canadian copyright law. That's the way we express it. Words are important. That's in a situation like this, the authors are personally, legally responsible, because it is not a policy of the Canadian federal government to steal from subcontractors or to plagiarize from subcontractors. That's not their policy. So this was done by individuals, which means they are personally responsible for the consequences of their actions legally. So anyway, okay, well, the lawsuit has now, the statement of claim. There's no lawsuit yet, but it's a statement of claim that's been filed. And that was an instant attention getter. All the work that I had with DRDC, and I was working in 2 fields, in another field, everything to do with missile stuff, that had been stopped. I was told, you're out. Now, that's illegal, but that's what I was told. So I was working in another field, and I was also told there's no more work for you in that field either, counter-IED stuff work. So no more income. So anyway, now lawsuits like a train barreling down a track and there's no off switch. There's maybe one off switch, which is mediation. You have to do the mediation step. So I agreed to the mediation step. That means we have to go and try to sort it out ourselves. And if we can't do that, then there is going to be, a court case or something like a court case. So it's a necessary step. You have to do that. So who on their side is going to be the mediator? So was suggested the scientific authority, and I foolishly agreed to that. I was already told by him and by one of the authors that they have a personal relationship. Yeah, they went to school together. So the scientific authority should have, in my view, recused himself, say, well, I can't help with this because I have a personal relationship with the authors and also with the head of Radar EW. So, but he didn't do that. So now I cannot talk about what happened in the mediation meeting. I'm not allowed to talk about that. But I can say that I blinked. I'm, the retainer to go past. If we don't get a resolution in the mediation meeting, then there is a lawsuit. And the retainer for the lawsuit at that time was going to be like $350,000. That's what I have to pay up front to proceed. Well, my house is gone. I cannot do that. But I just want to go back to work, actually. So with DRDC-Ottawa. And anyway, I can't talk about what happened in the mediation meeting, but it was deeply scarring to me to this day. But there was no further work for me from DRDC-Ottawa. One of the things was asked before the meeting was, well, would you like to be a co-author? And I said, no, I don't want to be a co-author with plagiarists. My reputation is very important to me, and I only do business with ethical people and ethical companies because it's too hard to fix. It's maybe impossible to fix, getting involved with the wrong people. So in conclusion, that, in a nutshell, is the story of the plagiarism as it affected me. I never did see the final version of the report, the fourth version of the report. I saw the first three. That was arranged as part of the preparation for the mediation meeting. And when I looked at them, they were full of plagiarism, more than I found, more than my colleague Dave King found. So they were flawed. But that was the end of my career. Professional career in electronic warfare in Canada. Once you challenge their integrity, they will never do business with you again. I mean, that was my experience with the previous dynasty. I mean, we could say that was then and this is now. All those people are gone except one. So maybe it's different today. I hope so. But that was the end. I mean, you just have no control over what stories are told around the water cooler, what partial stories are told, who has said what's said inside DRDC, although I do know a little bit about that. It's not part of this video. And outside of the lab, all the work just stops. So that was the consequence for me. However, there's another part of this that I think is interesting and relevant from a teaching point of view. In discussions with my brilliant mother, she said at one point, you could teach about this, And I heard the same thing from a university professor at Carleton University I was talking with, a guy who teaches an ethics course to engineers at Carleton, and I'm a Carleton engineer. And he said, this story has a lot of interesting aspects to it. There are two governments involved. It's got a government research lab, it's defense, it's scientific, there's private industry component. So there are a lot of moving parts, interesting moving parts to this intricate story. So you could teach about this. So with that in mind, I met with my lawyer before the statement of claim had been filed. So there's no going to be any lawsuit or anything like that. We're just trying to get this solved. And I met with him, and I know it was the 17th of September, 2008. And we had a 3-hour meeting into the evening till about 7 o'clock. And the purpose was to try to figure out for me to decide what is the resolution, what is the final, how do we end this? And I was thinking about the lecturing about this, and I thought, what I really want is to have an ending that's meaningful to the story, to a teaching story. And I thought, this looks like a really interesting opportunity. To answer the question, what does a world-class government research lab, a defense research lab, do if I just let go of everything, if I just let it go and see what they'll do? So they're not forced to do anything. What do they do? Do they correct it? Do they do nothing? By filing a statement of claim, that possibility goes away. So we'd never find out what the voluntary reaction is. I would hope that it's a good one, but I don't know. So that was my decision. So the next day, I went to see my mother. She had Lou Gehrig's disease, so I visited her quite often to discuss this with her. But when I got to her apartment, I found that she had died. So that conversation never took place. Now, it was not long after that I found out. Then I found out that the chief scientist had published a third version of the report behind my back while we're trying to resolve this as expeditiously as possible. He's published a third version of this report. And then I decided to file a statement of claim. Now, was there an emotional component to this? I don't know. I searched my heart. I think really it was the third version of the report. It was just so tone deaf. I said, yes, Harold, please proceed. My wonderful, brilliant, kind lawyer, Harold Geller. So I filed a statement of claim and things took off from there. But you need to know, whoever's listening, that if you put your hand in the fire on behalf of the defense of professional ethics, you will be burned. And this is not TV, so the outcome is uncertain, but the consequences could be dire. Now, that said, when your time comes, when you are tested, you will have to make your own decision. And my advice is choose wisely.